I want to admit something to a lot of you that a lot of folks don't want to admit out loud. For many of us, education was our way out. It was our way out of poverty. It was the only real shot that we had at changing the trajectory of our families, at breaking generational poverty. I want you to think about it. That's how most of us broke uh, uh, generational poverty, right? It didn't come from fame. It wasn't luck. It was education. Education, you either went to college, you went to trade school, you got a certification, but there was something that gave us access to a better paying job, some security, a life where survival wasn't our full time job. At least that's what we thought, right? That's what we thought. But right now in America in 2025, that rope out of poverty, they're cutting that. They're cutting that because the federal government just implemented loan caps with that big, beautiful bill that passed, something that was buried deep down in there. They put loan caps that can make it nearly impossible for regular working class families to afford higher education. Now, this is especially true if your child wants to pursue something big, something meaningful, something that requires years and years of schooling, right? So if your child dreams of becoming a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, or a therapist, I need you to prepare yourself, okay? Because now that the federal aid won't come close to even covering the cost, right? Guess who has to come up with the difference on that, y'all? You. You. So we're going to talk about what that really means for parents, right? Especially Black parents, right? Especially working class parents, especially single parents and caretakers raising grandkids or nieces and nephews, right? Because y'all, you need this change here. It means you're now expected to come up with tens of thousands of dollars out of your pocket. Yeah, got to come out of your pocket. And we're not talking 3K. We're not talking 5K. We're talking $40,000 to $100,000 or more. And that's not even for medical school yet. That's just undergrad because college is so expensive now. Let that sink in. Let that sink in. You're raising a child who dared to dream. God forbid your baby had a dream, right? Who followed every rule. They got the grades. They volunteered. They stay out of trouble. And now you're supposed to look at your child in the face and say, I'm sorry, baby, we just can't afford your future. Not because they didn't qualify. Pay attention to that. Not because they weren't smart enough. But because somebody in power decided that your child's dreams were not worth the investment. Because that's what student loans and student grants, all those grants and stuff, that's about investing in our children, investing in the future. Investing. But these people decided your children aren't worth the investment. Instead, they want to take our tax dollars and invest it into rich people in their companies, their businesses, their ventures. Because again, what does America like to do? They like to subsidize their losses and let them keep all their wins to themselves. Maybe, just maybe, if we stop subsidizing rich people, the conversations that I'm talking about in this live today, you never have to have. Because let's talk about what this does to our children. It's already hard enough for young people to imagine themselves in these big roles. They're already dealing with social pressure. They have mental health challenges and a society that constantly undervalues them. But now, on top of that, now we're adding a price tag so high that they'll be too scared to even try. Yeah, we tell them to dream big, but the cost of that dream, right, has become unreachable. And the emotional toll that it takes on a child is heavy. Y'all need to understand that. It's heavy. The shame of being accepted into your dream school, but knowing your family can't afford it. That's a weight you carry for years. That's something you can't let go. I could have done this, but I was born too poor. Some will take out risky private loans because, see, that's what they want you to do. Their vulture friends, their vulture rich friends are waiting to give you risky private loans to take your parents' house, to take your entire future away, where you will have graduated from school, but all of your monies still are going to be going to a loan that you would have taken out 40 years ago. Make it make sense. And you don't have nothing to show for it. No house, no nothing. You just have that paper, right? Some people are going to give up altogether. And some will settle, not because they want to, but because they have to. The system is set up that way. So when we talk about equity, let's be clear. This disproportionately hurts Black, Brown, Indigenous, and low-income families the most. That's who's going to get hit the most. These are the same communities that were already unprecedented in unprofessional fields, right? I'm sorry, underrepresented in unprofessional fields. But now they're going to disappear even more. As a Black person, I go out of my way to find doctors of color. I really, really do, because I have even had my own experiences in the medical field, being a patient where people don't listen. And I'm like, well, having somebody look like me, 9 times out of 10, they're more inclined to listen because they know what it's like to be ignored. We're going to have that problem even more. So let's get real, y'all. If you're a parent or a guardian listening to this, I want you to ask yourself this question. Where are you going to get an extra like $20,000 a year for college? $60,000 a year for medical school? Where are you going to get that money? Because that's what it comes down to now. And if you think, well, my kid can just go to a cheaper school, understand this. Some professions require certain degrees. You don't get to be a surgeon or a civil rights attorney off of good intentions. That's not how that works. You need education. You need access. And what's happening now is the doors being shut before they even reach the threshold. You as a parent are being asked to bear that burden, to either take on more debt or watch your child's dream vanish. Which one you gonna do? Because see, that's not just cool, y'all. That's calculated. That's what they want. They know exactly who this hurts, and that's the point. I need you to understand whatever I've been telling you, none of it's an accident. None of it. None of it. And we didn't always, and listen, we're going to talk about how we got here because you need to understand it wasn't always like this. It wasn't always like this. There was a time when public universities were affordable, trade schools were thriving, community colleges were respected. But now, oh, no. Education has been turned into a profit machine. And the machine who got their degrees for $2,000 back in the 70s are now sitting in Congress telling your child they just need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. Yeah, it's gaslighting and it's dishonest. It's gaslighting and it's dishonest and it's violent in its consequences, right? Because we've normalized the idea that education is a luxury when it should be a right. How are we going to call ourselves the best nation in the world, but then you tell your people to educate you is a luxury? It's not for everybody. Huh? This system has slowly shifted to make sure that the rich stay rich and the poor stay chasing. Right? Because see, when you're tired, overworked, and in debt, you're easier to control. I keep telling y'all. I keep telling you. I keep telling you. And I know you're saying to me, what do we do, Bishop? What do we do? First, we have to name it. This is about control. This is about maintaining class division, right? This is about keeping your child's potential locked behind a damn paywall. You got to understand that. The second thing you got to do, you got to vote. You have to do your research. You got to push for candidates who support expanding loan forgiveness, tuition-free college, trade school funding, and policies that center on working families. You have to. Third, you got to talk to your kids. You're going to have to let your babies know this is not their fault. And we have to help them find alternative paths when we can. Because the fourth thing we got to do, we got to organize. We have to support community scholarship funds. We got to create our own networks. These are these co-ops I keep telling y'all about. We help each other because clearly the government's not going to help you. Clearly the government's not going to help you. The government's here to help rich people. And finally, we don't let go of the rope, y'all. Don't let go. We don't let our kids believe their dreams are too expensive. We remind them that our ambition matters and that we fight like hell to make sure they get to chase it. Because if you give up, your babies are going to give up. Your babies are watching you. Because remember, this ain't just about student loans. This is about access, dignity, legacy, all of those things. And my question is this: are we going to accept a future where only the wealthy can afford to dream? Huh? Or are we going to raise our voices and say, not on our watch? It's